Good Shabbos. I'm sitting in a spot here where my neighbors come together on a regular basis, and there's like all these benches out here, 4 benches on all sides, and they sit together and they verbring. they gather together and they have a good time, a lovely neighborly time every single week. As the Jewish people, part of our tradition is coming together on various occasions. But the one that's the most famous and the most kept is, of course, the Pesach Seder. Where does this originate? And obviously it originates in the Torah. The Torah in this week's portion tells us that when your child asks you, you will respond to him, you will explain to him the story of the Exodus and the importance of it, and the importance of it to us as a people. But besides that, there are actually certain laws about the Paschal offering that forced a communal get-together in the Seder. What do I mean? The Torah tells us that you had to bring a Paschal lamb, just like they did in the first night, the night before going out of Egypt. So too, every year when the temple stood, you had to bring a Paschal lamb. And that would be eaten on the Seder night. But there was no leftovers of this lamb. It had to be finished on that night. And you couldn't stuff yourself, because that's not considered proper eating. Once you're full, eating after you're full is not considered eating halachically. And so therefore, you had to calculate, okay, how many kilos am I going to get out of this lamb or this goat? And how many family members do we have? And I realized that I need another 10 people, another 20, another 30, whatever, 5, doesn't matter how many, to finish this full lamb on the night of Pesach, before midnight. And so I would knock on my neighbor's door and say, hey, we've got 6 in our family. Would you like to join us to be part of this one Paschal lamb? And then after getting all the people together to join you in this one lamb that you're all going to eat together, you're all going to partake in, you couldn't then divide it. Okay, you take this piece, I take that piece. No, you had to actually eat it in one environment. You have to sit together and eat it together. So the Torah here forced us to come together with our neighbors and friends and broader family when having the Pesach, the Paschal lamb. This is kind of where the Seder kind of comes from, where we don't only get together with our immediate family, but our broader family and friends and neighbors. It's the largest Jewish event where communities come together. That's the Seder night when we had the Paschal lamb, and since then we still come together in a broader way. Now this tells us something. The Rabbi says in a letter that he wrote in 1979, he says, you know why this is so? Because of course the Seder celebrates going out of Egypt. You cannot go out of Egypt if you're not thinking about another person. You cannot go out of Egypt. In other words, you can't go out of constriction. You cannot go out of enslavement. You cannot go beyond your limitations unless you're thinking about others. That became the motto of the Rebbe. The motto of the Rebbe really, which tomorrow, Yud Shvat, 10th of Shvat, is the day that he became Rebbe after the passing of his father-in-law, 74 years ago. His motto was, of course, Shlichus, sent all these emissaries out there to bring Jews the message of Judaism, the beauty of Judaism, and so on. But it was in order to teach us this idea. It wasn't just the emissaries that he made. He wanted every single Jew to be an emissary. And his motto really was a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. In Ethics of Our Fathers, Hillel says, Imein Anili is very famous. Imein Anili Mili. If I'm not for myself, who am I? This is a theme that the Rebbe said on the first night of when he accepted the leadership. He said, listen, yes, I'm going to be the Rebbe, but I'm not doing things for you. I'm not here to allow you to sit back and relax and have a comfortable, easy life. Yeah, you'll do all the right things, but you'll just have an easy life. You're not going to go out of yourself and have a Rebbe. He's in charge. He'll take care of the macro. I just have to worry about myself. Says the Rebbe, no. Imein anili mili. Even, the whole idea of Chassidus Chabad was the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe's, in a sense, debate with his colleagues other Hasidic masters was that the other Hasidic masters believed that a tzaddik, you just go to a tzaddik, you connect to a tzaddik, you're in the environment of a tzaddik, and he lifts you, and he inspires you, and he makes you look at his service of Hashem, you look at his prayer, you look at his piety, and you become inspired, and that's it. You become inspired by osmosis of being next to someone really special and great. And the Alter Rebbe says, no, Chabad means that you have to understand things on your own, you have to learn, you have to understand, and you have to work on yourself. You have to have your mind communicating with your heart. No one's doing it for you. If I'm not going to do it for myself, no one's doing it for me. And this is what the Rebbe re-emphasized the day that he took on the leadership, that each one of us has to put in the effort ourselves. The Rebbe's not doing it for us. I will help you, he says. I'll be there for you, support you, but you've got to put in the effort. That's number one. But if I'm only for myself, what am I? Yes, you have to put in the effort yourself, but you don't only focus on yourself. In order, as we just said, to go out of your Egypt, you need to focus on others. You need to be care about another person. That's the only way you can go out of yourself. Now, the Yud Shvat, this 10th of Shvat, is also the yahrzeit of the previous Rebbe's grandmother, Rebbe Rivka. For that, he wrote this discourse to be studied on her day of passing, the 10th of Shvat, which then became his day of passing. And one of this great story of the Rebbe Rivka, her husband, the Rebbe Marash, suffered from a terrible cough, incessant cough that he couldn't get rid of. And he needed this kind of expensive jam, a fruit jam that was quite expensive and difficult to get. And that would help his cough. So Chassidim, they wanted the Rebbe to be healthy, and they did whatever they could to gather the money to get this for the Rebbe. It was a kind of from a sweet fruit of some sort. One day, a fellow knocks on the Rebbe Rivka's door and says, my wife has a similar ailment to the Rebbe Marash, to the Rebbe, which was then the fourth Chabad Rebbe called the Rebbe Marash. She has a similar ailment, and we can't afford this special jam. The Rebbe Rivka really felt terrible. She got the new pack of jam that was bought for her husband, and she gave it to this Jew. He said, here, this is for your wife. There was a chassid there who was quite upset at this fellow's chutzpah. This was not appropriate for the guy to kind of come and take that, which everyone chipped in order for the Rebbe to have. So he followed this guy, and he went to their home to follow this guy home. The guy goes into his house, and he hears there's a whole laughing in there. They tricked her. He just won. And he comes in, rushing into the door, and he said, what kind of nerve is this? How could you do something like that? They said, we always, wanted to taste some of that jam, so I put up a show, and that's how I got this jam. And this fellow went back to the Rebbe and told her the story, told her what happened, told him what this guy did. She says, oh, thank you so much for telling me. I was so worried that she wasn't well. Now I'm so glad she's good. She's okay. She's not sick. What would you think about that when you heard that the guy smuggled out something very expensive medication that you needed for your family? She was happy that the woman wasn't really sick. That's a very special level. So that's in a practical way. And of course, the Rebbe wanted us to think about others, whether it be for their physical needs or their spiritual needs, and focus probably majority of his letters and personal communication with encouraging people to do for other people. What can you do for others? If you know Aleph, you have to teach Aleph. If you know just a little bit, teach it to someone else. You have to encourage someone else to do the little bit that you do. If you put on tefillin, encourage another Jew to put on tefillin. If you learn Torah, encourage another person to learn Torah. If you're watching this video already at 9 minutes, that means you've watched till this point. Then encourage another person to send it to someone else and say, you know what, I really enjoyed this. Here, learn some Torah, or this video, or any other Torah learning. If you go to a course and appreciate it, get another person to do it. That is how we go out of our own Egypt. When we just don't focus on our own benefit, but we focus on the needs and the spiritual needs and the material needs of others as well. Let me conclude the following little story. So in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, there's this fellow. He's an accountant. He's 50 years old. He lives alone. One day he hears a knock on the door, and it's the mailman, and he brings him shmura matzah. Rabbi Shaul Shmutkin sent out shmura matzahs to the people in Milwaukee for Pesach. Of course, that's one of the things that Rabbi encouraged us to do. So the fellow, thank you very much, and has in his mind, Rabbi Shmutkin, for not forgetting about me and sending me this matzah. The next day, another knock on the door, another matzah. That's strange. Why is he sending me more than one matzah? Next day, a third matzah comes to his door. He says, okay, this must be some kind of, what is he have so much money to just send out, matzah after matzah after matzah? Anyway, he thought to himself, you know what? I got these matzahs. I'll give it to some people. He gives it to two workers he had, a Jewish fellow and a Jewish girl, and he gives them this matzah before Pesach. After Pesach, he relates the following. He went and had the Seder with his father, who his stepmother, unfortunately, is really not well. When he took out the matzah, she smiled and she said, I'm so happy you brought this matzah. Every day for me is suffering. Thank you for making today different to every other day that I've had. Then he goes to work after Pesach, and the fellow says to him, my wife never wanted to do a Seder. She wasn't into it, but when I brought the matzah on the table, something reminded her of her youth and her childhood, and she encouraged me to take the Agada out and to tell our children the story of Pesach. And then as he walks through the coffee machine, the lady he gave the matzah to, he says, you know what happened? I brought the matzah. We always go to our parents for Seder, for Pesach, but not for a Seder. We just have the Pesach meal together. When we took out the matzah, my daughter took out the pieces of matzah and gave it to everyone at the table, and then read the letter of the rabbi explaining it. And then my husband looked at my daughter and saw my husband who's not Jewish, saw the twinkle in her eye. He says, wow, this really touches her, doesn't it? And he agreed that we send her to Sunday school, something he did not agree till then. So he's figured, well, the rabbi really knows what he's doing. We have this is what the Mishnah says. First of all, you have to worry about yourself. You have to worry about your own spiritual needs. No one's going to do it for you. Then you have to think about others. In order for you to go out of your Egypt, you have to gather together with others. In other words, you have to go out of yourself and worry and take care of other people's needs. And the Mishnah concludes, not now when. This is actually the theme of the discourse the previous Rebbe gave out. The end of the discourse speaks about the fact that no one knows how much time he has in this world, and therefore we have to utilize our time to its fullest. If we don't do it now, when will it be done? And we turn to Hashem and say, when are you going to bring Mashiach? If not now, when? Good Shabbos.